Chapter 8 of our text deals with the concept of emotions, and the chapter is outlined in the following manner. First, what are emotions? Second, influences on emotional expression. Third, learning to express emotions effectively. And then fourth, managing your emotions. Well, let's jump right into it. Can you imagine what life would be like if you lost your ability to experience emotions? So an emotionless world would be one that would be free of boredom, frustration, fear, and loneliness. But at the same time, it would be without pride and joy and excitement and love. And so way back in 1995, Daniel Goleman coined the term emotional intelligence, or EQ, to describe one's ability to understand and manage one's own emotions effectively, and then to be sensitive to others' emotions and feelings. So, emotional intelligence quota is what he labeled. Studies show that emotional intelligence is positively linked with self-esteem and life satisfaction, with healthy conflict communication, with empathic listening abilities, and effective workplace interaction. So stop for a second and identify someone you know who's emotionally intelligent. Now think of a person who might be lacking emotional intelligence. And then finally, and you'll have the opportunity later in this chapter, to assess your own emotional intelligence. So it's important that we explore what feelings are. We know how to handle them in contemporary society. We do recognize how to express them and express them in a way that can improve relationships. And we know how to cope with some troublesome feelings that we will experience. So the first section is entitled, What are Emotions? When we experience strong emotions, there are bodily changes that occur. Think of it when you are about to give a presentation in a public speaking course or in any course. And so your heart rate increases, your blood pressure is elevated, there's increased adrenaline, all these things, your pupils might dilate. So we experience emotions not just in the mind, between our ears, but throughout the body. So the first one is physiological changes. The second one is nonverbal behavior. You can observe somebody experiencing an emotion by looking at the physiological changes, such as blushing or perspiring. It's easy to tell when someone is feeling a strong emotion, but on the other hand, it's difficult to tell exactly what that emotion might be. So widened eyes might indicate excitement, or it might indicate fear. Often we think of nonverbal behavior as the result or reaction to an emotional state, but there are many times when the reverse is true, when nonverbal behavior actually causes the emotions. So clenching your fists can make you feel stronger. One behavioral scientist likes to say it can be easier to act yourself into a new way of feeling than to feel yourself into a new way of acting. It's easier to act yourself into new ways of feeling than to feel yourself into new ways of acting. So, nonverbal expressions of emotions are connected with verbal ones. The third thing that is involved in emotions is the cognitive interpretation. So the mind plays an important role in determining how we feel. Successful athletes experiencing pre-competition stress label their feelings in positive emotional terms. I'm pumped and ready to go, and certainly this helped their performance. This holds true for public speaking as well. Telling yourself, I'm excited, rather than calm down, will generally lead to a more successful presentation. So it's how you interpret the emotion, if you're able to give a positive spin to it. Some researchers have concluded that the experience of fright, joy, or anger come primarily from the labels, how we label it, the connotation and the accompanying cognitive interpretations we give to our physical symptoms. So there's a good example in the text about a lecturer who says, I notice I'm perspiring while lecturing, and then he decides to figure out why is he boring, and if he's boring and students are leaving, that makes him nervous. But in the end, the student says, it's hot in here, I'm perspiring, and it makes it tough to concentrate on your lecture. The lecturer now reappraises his thought process. So social scientists refer to this process as reappraisal, rethinking the meaning of emotionally charged events in ways that alter their emotional impact. Reappraisal is certainly superior or better than suppressing one's feelings. It often leads to lower stress and increased productivity, and it has both psychological and physiological benefits. Reappraisal, why you feel the emotion that you do, also has relational benefits. A study of couples found that couples who regularly step back from their conflicts and reappraise them from a neutral perspective have high levels of relational satisfaction. In essence, what happens is that these couples reduce the emotional impact of their disputes by looking at them rationally and dispassionately. So what are emotions? They are physiological changes, they are nonverbal behavior, cognitive interpretations, and lastly, verbal expression. Putting your emotions into words can help you manage them more effectively, whereas if you leave them unspoken, it can be personally and interpersonally harmful. There are several basic or primary emotions, but there isn't really agreement on what these are and what makes them basics. Emotions that are primary in one culture may not be primary in others, and some emotions may have no equivalent in other cultures. But most scholars acknowledge that anger, fear, sadness, and disgust, and joy are common and typical human emotions. And we experience most emotions with different degrees of intensity, and we use specific emotion words to represent these differences. Sometimes we understate our emotions, and sometimes we overstate the strength of their feeling. That's section 1. The next video will look at influences on emotional expression.